All right, everyone. I think we got most people in here. We'll get started. Thanks for everyone for joining. My name's Tony. I'll run through the webinar today, Paid Search and Social Advertising Made Simple. I also have my friend and colleague, Kelly, on the line. I'll have him join here toward the end. He's both a Mesa and WordStream customer, so he has some experience that he can share with us that is relevant to the presentation today. So we'll join at the end here, but I want to get started, kick things off. I wanted to bring this webinar to all you guys and girls out there. I thought it'd be relevant for your businesses. We're partners with Mesa here. We think there's good alignment between our businesses and theirs. So we've done similar stuff in the past and with good success. So want to focus on paid search and social specifically. There's a lot going on in 2019 this year, and I'll take you through what I think are the best tips and tricks right now, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. All right. So again, just logistically here, like I said, we're partnered up with Mesa for this, excited for the webinar. We will be recording it, so if anyone needs to jump off, hopefully you can stay through the whole thing, but we'll be able to share it with you at the end here if you want to go back to any specific sections. Again, there's be some time for Q&A at the end. There's a question box here in the GoToWebinar, so submit your questions there, and I'll try to make sure we get through all of those. So here's me, quick introduction. My name's Tony. I've been with WordStream for about 9 years now. I've done a paid search for almost that whole time. My experience is in the agency world, so working with clients. I've worked both internally and externally, meaning I've worked with clients in your industry, all across the board, from e-commerce to lead generation to home services to HVAC to audio to you kind of name it, I've been there. Now I work within WordStream. I work in our marketing department and I manage our internal campaign. So about $7 million a year in spend there. So a lot of experience in the space, and again, happy to share and answer any questions, but I think I can add some value today. Quick shameless plug here. For those of you not familiar with WordStream, we do have a software. The software, I'll dig through it a bit at the end here. I want to focus on content, but there are some tips from the software I think are relevant. Our software basically allows you to go in for 20 minutes a week, optimize your both Google and Facebook and Bing campaigns if you have it. Our kind of key value prop there is the 20-minute work week. You go in, it bubbles up the best suggestions, and you can act on your account. But like I said, I'll get into that a little bit more, but just wanted to be transparent there and make you guys familiar with who we are and why we're bringing the webinar to you guys today. So a quick agenda, we'll go through common paid search and social challenges and opportunities. We'll talk about strategies for achieving success on both Google and Facebook. And then we'll talk through sort of that 20-minute work week piece that I mentioned, and then we'll save some time for Q&A. So Google competition is tough. For those of you that are doing it, you're probably aware. For those of you that don't have that experience just yet, there's a lot of people out there advertising. It's the main source of advertising online, both Google and Facebook, tens of thousands of searches a month. I pulled this data right from Google. You can kind of see here with some of the searches, particularly for a lot of you in your industry, high competition. So car audio installation, car audio shops, those stores and so forth, tens of thousands of searches a month. It can be competitive. The cost per click can be competitive, and it can be competitive in order to stand out. So we'll take you through some opportunities there on how to stand out and differentiate yourselves. But just for perspective, this is just one query that I did here with car audio, and you can see the amount of volume and competition out there. So we don't want to just focus on core keywords. We want to think about other strategies that you can implement beyond just throwing a bunch of keywords into Google and hoping for the best. We want to talk through basically some specific tips and tricks to avoid some of that tough competition. So you can actually see here one of the queries and searches is Best Buy, and I want to use that example here in the next slide. If you're doing a search for car audio installation, you're going to compete with some big competitors out there. Best Buy being one of them. There are big industries that are going after the space. I just did the search myself. I'm up here in Boston, and you can see that Best Buy is the #1 result. And then followed by some local services, which I think is a good opportunity for people to differentiate themselves. Best Buy's ad here, it's pretty generic. It's exactly what I typed in. So car audio installation, they kind of pull that right into the headline there. And, total tech support, but nothing to really differentiate themselves. So again, we'll talk through some strategies there, but the big competitors can create some challenges. So you want to focus on your value prop, like what can you do to beat those competitors? What is it that you do that's differentiated from the big brands? And make sure you call it out in your ad copy. And again, paid search is one avenue. We want to talk through social and ways to maximize your budget so you're not just competing for that one click against the big guys out there. Again, focusing on your value prop, particularly if you're local, you have a big opportunity to kind of differentiate yourselves and be there, be in the space, and call out some of the things that you have and that you're trusted for in your area. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the presentation here. So some quick stats on Google Ads. Again, no surprises here. All the searches online are mainly done through Google. 3.5 billion searches a day go through Google. Over 1 billion people are active on YouTube. Google also owns YouTube, sort of actually like the second largest search engine in the world. We'll get into that a little bit, but I think the focus today should still be on search. That's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. And again, 90% of internet users on Google, on the display network specifically. So, we're going to talk through search. We'll talk a little bit about display. Display basically anywhere online, on blogs, on websites and so forth, where you can show your ads. But we want to be there where the intent is highest. So that's why we'll focus more on the search side versus YouTube and display, which can be more passive audiences. So again, Google owns all these buckets here. Search, display, shopping isn't really relevant to your business. If you are an e-commerce website, it can be sort of a topic for another time, but shopping campaigns are also really prevalent through Google now. And again, YouTube is obviously a big one out there with a lot of reach. On the Facebook front, again, it's kind of where everyone is doing their searches is on Google, and then where people are spending their time outside of Google, most people are on Facebook. They're spending a lot of their passive time there. So 1 billion daily active users there. Again, 94% of internet users, people are logging in every day. Facebook also owns Instagram, which is becoming more popular as well. So most people are logging into these sites all the time, 65% almost every single day. A lot of it is through the smartphone. So you do want to keep in mind mobile as a strategy. And then again, just between Google and Facebook, 90+% of all internet users, that's what people are, that's where you want to be. So one of the questions that comes up quite a bit, where should I spend my dollars? Should I spend my dollars on Google versus Facebook? Facebook is up and coming. A lot of advertising dollars are shifted there. So we'll get into it, but I think there's a good hybrid between the two. But some differentiators between the two. So Google's cost per click is higher. The average cost per click is about $2.69 with super high variance. Depends on what industry you're in. For instance, lawyers could have up to $40, $100 cost per clicks. If you're something that's low margin, oftentimes the cost per clicks are cheaper there. But again, average about $2 to $3. Some of you may be in a really competitive spot or area. Geographically, could be in New York City, and the cost per click is significantly higher than what you're seeing. So every click is important. Every click that comes to your website, about 96% of people that come to your site will not convert or take an action. So when they leave, you're paying those people to come. We want to have a strategy to try to bring them back. So on the Facebook front, cost per click's cheaper. So it is, not quite Google just yet. The competition is growing at a very high clip, but the average cost per click is $1.72 on average. So, almost 40% cheaper there. So again, you can get some cheaper clicks there, but we want to be conscious of the intent. So kind of the big differences, what's the difference? So Google's the high intent searcher, right? So you guys all know this, but someone coming to Google, they're looking for something specific. They're not just there kind of browsing like they are on Facebook. They're looking for something with purpose, whether it's trying to fulfill a job, or if I want something to eat, I'm going to go there and look for restaurants near me, or if I need audio support in my car, I'm going to go to Google as the first place to try to find some people out there, offers, businesses, and see what I can do. So the intent is there. The intent is higher because somebody is most often searching with purpose to take an action. Whereas Facebook, you are there sometimes to do some sort of shopping, but most of the time you're there to see what your friends are doing, to just kind of browse, kill some time, and it is a more passive audience. However, Facebook does have more sophisticated targeting for your audiences. So for instance, for the big one step back, you're actually, when you talk with Facebook or when you're connected to Facebook, you're actually giving them obviously a lot more information, right? They know your name, your birth date, a lot of your interests, who your friends are, places that you've checked into or things that you've liked. So there is more specific audience targeting. It's better than Google's. Google tries to figure out your audience based on your search behavior online and things you're doing. And they can kind of take a guess if you're visiting certain websites and so forth. Maybe you're this age and maybe you're this gender. Facebook, you explicitly give that information to them in order to use their service. So they have better audience targeting. So it is good from that standpoint. But the best way to do it is to kind of have, again, that combination of the two. So again, high intent searches on Google, but the audience targeting and the cost per click is cheaper on Facebook. So we'll talk about how to get those together. So one thing that's interesting is, obviously people on Google are going through and searching and trying to find help, businesses, whatever it may be. But oftentimes too, you want to have people going out and looking explicitly for you, right? So if I'm going to try to find a service, maybe I do a few searches and then I actually come back and I type in, hey, Boston car audio, so-and-so.com. It's a business that I'm familiar with. So, you do want people to become familiar with your brand. So what's interesting about Facebook is it can actually drive more people. Like if they're seeing your ad on Facebook, they may not actually go to you right away, but they get that brand familiarity with you, and then they actually come back to Google and do a search. So what this graph is showing is actually, so only on Google search, people may or may not search for your brand and go right there. When combined with Bing, you actually see a lift up in that search volume, people looking explicitly for you on Google. Combined with display, like I mentioned, they're seeing your ads, it's a 31% lift. And then we're actually combined with Facebook, it's a 34% lift in people searching for you explicitly. And those are going to be oftentimes your highest value customers because they know who you are, right? So an example could be, again, I go online, I do a search, I'm looking for some help, not familiar with any brands just yet, poke around a few, and then I go on Facebook and I actually see your brand again. And then when the time comes for me to kind of follow up and make a decision, that time around, I might be way more likely to actually just go in and search for your business, and which will give me much more intent and a higher likelihood to take an action, to give you a call or to make a purchase. So in tandem, people will actually start to search on Google more just for your brand explicitly versus just trying to go out there and doing a generic search like car audio support or something like that. So next steps here, I want to take through some specific strategies to achieve success on Google and Facebook. So we'll talk explicitly first about Google, long tail keywords, negative keywords, high cost keywords, bidding, ad groups, and text ads, and then we'll talk about how to expand all of that on the Facebook front. So long tail keywords. So for those of you who are, again, newer to Google or aren't familiar with the terminology, so long tail keywords are oftentimes, they have more intent, people are more likely to take an action, and they're also the lower cost per click, right? So in that first example of just searching for car audio, that's when you're gonna oftentimes get into that space where everyone is bidding, so there's more competition, the cost per click is higher. Doesn't mean you don't wanna have presence there, but you can also match for a whole bunch of different things, right? So that term car audio, you may start for, car audio parts, car audio services, car audio from Best Buy, car audio help with from my Spotify. Like, they could just be various things that you could attract attention for. Where in the second example there, you're looking at car audio installation in Boston. Like, this person is showing really high intent. They're in Boston, they're looking for a specific service of installation. So they're giving geographic information and actually kind of what their action is there. These longer tail keywords are less competitive. There are less people bidding on it, and the cost per click is much cheaper. So you can actually get better rankings, lower cost per click, and have a higher intent for somebody to come to your website and take an action, to give you a call or come visit you or make a purchase. So again, focus on the long tail terms. Doesn't mean you don't want the presence for some of those generic terms, but if you have a fixed budget, you want to have as many long tail terms as you can. You don't need to get overly specific. Once you start going into things that are, 5, 6, 7 terms long, there may just not be search volume for them. But the more you can be specific, again, the more opportunity you'll have, the lower cost per click, the more competitive you can be, and you don't necessarily compete with everyone in the space like a Best Buy who's just kind of spraying and praying and throwing a bunch of keywords in a campaign and spending millions of dollars and just trying to get traffic to their site. you guys want to be very specific in terms of what your intentions are and really be conscious of your budget, because every click is a dollar out of your pocket that you could be using for other marketing or for running your business. Second piece here, negative keywords. If you have an account, you're probably familiar with them, but oftentimes we've seen this. We've worked with thousands of customers. We have a tool that runs through and we can see how much people are wasting their spend on search terms that don't matter, and almost every account needs more negative keywords. So negative keywords, what are they? They're the search terms that you can put into your account that basically you won't show if these words are present, right? So oftentimes people are looking for things like free or certain things that are, worst, or things that are not relevant to your business. So if you're doing car audio and you don't support a specific brand, say you don't support JBL or whatever it may be, you want to explicitly put that as a negative, because you don't necessarily want to show for that and waste that click for people that are searching for you. So again, it's a pretty standard approach within all accounts, but it's worth calling out, because almost every account, I've worked on thousands of accounts that I see needs more negative keywords, because you can actually reduce your costs and then reinvest in the things that are of more value. So again, think about the things that you don't do. You don't probably give away free work. If you give away something for free, you may want to have it in there, but those terms that can waste your dollars, you want to make sure that you get those out right away, so that you're only showing for people that have high intent searches. Identifying high cost keywords with low returns. Again, so this is where I see the most misalignment in accounts, right? So if we go back to that, some people oftentimes will be bidding on audio or car audio. And again, it's something that has value, but what happens is sometimes that one term will cannibalize your whole budget because it's so generic, and it doesn't give the opportunity for some of those long tail terms to show more often that have a better likelihood to drive value for your business. So you want to look at this regularly. You want to go in and identify, hey, where's all the cost of my accounts going to? And when I often look at that, I see about 80% of it going to a handful of keywords. And then when we dig into those, they're often showing for searches that aren't relevant, right? Those negative search terms that I mentioned. So go in there, look regularly, kind of filter by cost and see where you're spending all of your dollars. If you're getting a great return, great. Go ahead and continue to optimize those terms. But oftentimes you'll be kind of top heavy in a handful of terms. And to my point earlier, people are going to find you. There's 3 billion searches a day on Google. About 15 to 20% of those are unique every single day, searches that Google has never seen before. So you're going to want to have, hundreds, thousands of keywords over time, because those can be more specific with more specific copy and so forth, versus having, 5 to 10 keywords that drive all of your budget. So to bidding within Google, there's a whole lot of things to consider. Obviously, there's the negative keywords, there's the targeting and so forth. Bidding is one that I often see is probably the biggest challenge for folks. Again, there'll be one keyword, maybe you want to rank at the top of the page for it, and you set it for a $10 bid, and all of a sudden your budget runs out by 11 o'clock in the morning, and half your customers aren't even looking until 2 o'clock, and they see better results at that time. So review your bids regularly. There are new things in there. There's opportunity within Google now to use some automated bidding, where you can set, hey, I have a target cost per conversion, or say if your conversion is a phone call or a lead generation form of $100. Those have gotten pretty good, but you need to have a decent amount of volume of conversions for those to learn and to be sufficient. So, if you're doing manually bidding, or if you're not sure on kind of where to start, I would say, keep things a little bit lower in your bids up front. We oftentimes recommend like a stack bidding approach. So bid the most for those long tail terms, right? Maybe bid $5 for car audio installation in Boston. You still want to be present for car audio, but you bid that down for $2 because it's a little bit less valuable for you and a little bit less intense. So consider that when you're thinking about your bids, but look at them regularly. There are definitely going to be some, like I said, maybe you want to be higher on the page, but maybe you don't necessarily need to be in the top spot for certain keywords, because that cost is eating up all of your budget. Splitting up ad groups, this is a big one. So, oftentimes, again, I'll see accounts that have, one ad group that has almost all of their core keywords in it. And that can create a lot of problems, right? Because how can you have one ad group within Google that can have proper messaging for 200 different searches, right? So if you have 100 keywords in one ad group, you're oftentimes gonna not be able to be specific with your messaging. So take, for example, if I service people in Boston, but I also service people in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I have those keywords together, car audio in Nashua, New Hampshire, car audio in Boston in the same ad group, there's no way that messaging can be aligned and can stand out. And you're going to have that generic ad like I showed from Best Buy at the beginning. So the more you can split your ad groups out, the more tailored that messaging can be. And what that'll actually do is improve your quality score, right? So quality score is Google's relevancy score. It's from 1 to 10, 10 being the best. And the higher your quality score, the less per click you pay, and the higher you rank on their page. And so it's kind of Google's way of ranking, hey, you know, your ad groups are too generic and your ad copy isn't great. You have a lower click-through rate than your competition, so we're going to penalize you for that. If you split your ad groups up and have a healthy set of ad groups that are about 10 to 20 keywords a piece and keep that targeting and messaging correctly, your click-through rate will go up, your quality score will go up as well, and as a result, your cost per click will come down. Another part of it too is having the proper landing page associated with, again, 100 different searches isn't possible, right? If you have different pages on your site that are more relevant, you want to make sure that you have messaging and pointing people to the right spot. If they're all in the same ad group, you're basically going to send them to the same place. Whereas if you have a landing page specific to Boston versus Nashua, or if you have different services that you do, if it's installation or if you're selling parts, you want those to be separate because they're different pages on your site, driving people to the right spot. Again, you kind of get that one chance. 96% of people don't take an action on that first time around. So you want to make sure you're sending them to your best opportunity, your best page first. So again, look at your account structure. If you don't have an account, make sure you go in there and use that to start things up, 10 to 20 keywords per ad groups. If you have an account right now and you're kind of top heavy in your ad groups, go ahead and take a look there and see if you have opportunity to split them out. So text ads, it's interesting. Google released this expanded text ads now, so there's more inventory. I mean, Google's ultimate goal is to continue to make the ads as relevant as possible so that they can do less organic and collect more dollars in the paid front. And they've done a good job with that. The ad formats used to be this one headline followed by 2 lines of copy, and that was pretty much it. Now there are all these different ad extensions where you can kind of see where you are by location. You can see, links below it. There's reviews, there are maps, there's all these different things. And they continue to expand their text ads. So it used to be around 140 characters. That continues to grow. So you want to make sure you're updated. You're using all the inventory that Google allows you to use. Most accounts that I see still don't have everything updated, aren't taking advantage. You want to take up as much real estate on the page as possible, differentiate yourself, call it your value props. And it's also important to consider this on mobile as well, right? So again, mobile becoming more and more present. These ads will show on mobile, so you want to make sure that you have them set up appropriately and or take different action and have different copy on mobile because people are actually behaving there differently, right? Like maybe they're looking right to call you versus trying to browse the web. So take close attention to your text ads. Make sure you're using all of the available formats in place and all of the extensions. Again, if you have any questions about that, certainly mention at the end here, or you can follow up with me. But you want to make sure you take off as much inventory as possible. And so kind of all those things on Google front, you want to make sure that, again, 96% of people that come to your site don't complete. That's where you want to start to incorporate Facebook. So Google and Facebook both have remarketing available. Remarketing is basically those ads that you see following you around once if you went to and looked at a certain set of golf clubs that you want, and then all of a sudden you see them following you around the web, that's remarketing. You'll see them on your Facebook, and you also see them on blogs and across the internet and so forth. So you want to take as much advantage of that as possible. Remarketing clicks are oftentimes cheaper than searches. And this is the second time around somebody is becoming more familiar with your brand. If they click on that ad, they have a higher likelihood to convert. So take advantage of those that people you paid, you got them to your website. That's expensive. You don't want them to be one and done. Take advantage of setting up remarketing on Google and Facebook. I recommend extending it as far as you can. Google and Facebook, obviously the big players there, so I set those up first. But you want to extend beyond your site, right? So like I said, you're paying for people to get there. It costs a lot of dollars. Follow them around until they take an action. And then you can exclude them if you don't want to pay for them again, or you can send them a different messaging, cross-selling the second time around. So there are opportunities within the audiences to do that segmenting, but you really want to make sure you have remarketing set up, and Facebook is a great place to do that. One more thing I wanted to call out here explicitly is call tracking. Specifically, for people that are doing services, right? If you're not doing any transactions on the web, a phone call is going to be oftentimes much more valuable to you than a form fill or some other action, right? An email capture or something along those lines. 65% of people consider those the best quality leads. No surprise there, you're getting someone on the phone and you have the opportunity to close them. So you want to have call tracking set up, right? And a lot of people use vanity numbers. Maybe they have a different number for each city, or maybe they just have one number, right? But when it comes to optimizing your campaigns, if it's an 800 number and you're using the same piece for call for install speakers as audio, as stereo systems, like those may actually all have much different values to you, right? Like maybe installing speakers is less valuable to you than stereo systems, or I'm not sure, but whatever it may be, you want to be able to optimize those differently. If you have one number, you can't really tell where people are coming from. So if you set up call tracking and you have unique numbers, you can then map those numbers to the keyword, and you might be willing to say, hey, I'm willing to pay, $20 a call for somebody to call me and ask about speakers, but for stereo systems, I really don't want to pay more than $10 a call. If you don't have call tracking set up, you're not going to have that visibility to do that, to optimize your campaigns, right? So consider it. It's something that we offer, but there are a lot of solutions out there. The big thing is really being able to narrow it down all the way to the keyword, or at least to the ad group level, so that you can optimize accordingly and make sure you have visibility into kind of where people are coming from, and optimize your bids, your keywords, and so forth based on the conversions that are coming from different numbers. So I know that was kind of a lot there, but the strategies, again, negatives, keywords, cost of campaigns, optimizing your bids, splitting ad groups, optimizing your ads. And then at the end, once you've kind of done all those things, make sure you're extending to Facebook and to even Google's display network for remarketing to bring people back. And then it's kind of a throw in there. I did mention the call tracking. Setting that up is going to make all of those things more valuable to you. And the other thing too is just to make sure you get in there every day, and at least on a weekly basis, and are checking and making sure you're not throwing away $500 on a keyword that isn't relevant to your business, right? You got a lot going on. It's hard. Understanding and keeping up with Google and Facebook is a full-time job. I get that. It's my full-time job, but I'm still every day learning things. But you want to make sure you're at least going in there on a weekly basis and touching things up, because all of a sudden you're spending $400 or $500 a week on one keyword that's driving no value to your business. You think about how that adds up quickly. That could be an employee for you. That could be, money back in your pocket and your salary and so forth. So, really make sure that you're taking the time to at least go in there on a weekly basis and touch them up. So again, that was a lot. I'll breeze through the last pieces here. I don't want to do too much selling. Like I said, hopefully what I've showed you guys is of value. But we do have some solutions here in place that I wanted to kind of talk through. So I'll get into that quickly here. Again, the goal of our software is to be able to go in 20 minutes a week and make optimizations, because most people are like you. They're often, maybe they're a marketer, maybe they're a business owner, or maybe they're wearing several hats. And again, you want to be able to go in there and make the optimizations quickly and not spend all of your days and hours learning the newest things within Google and Facebook. So we have a 20-minute work week, as we call it. And what happens is, again, it kind of bubbles up the top opportunities based on your account, identifies areas of opportunity that can be acted on, and go for basically the most immediate and most valuable gain. We try to do the analysis for you so that you don't have to go in and make the changes within the native platforms. It's all within one place there, and it's a simple workflow. And so again, kind of some of the examples that I mentioned. So when I talked about negative keywords, what the software does is kind of boil up where you're wasting the most dollars. So this example is showing roofing, but it's still relevant. So, it's looking at this first campaign here or ad group and saying, hey, there's actually about $1,000 in savings that you're using potentially from negatives that should be added. And it's going to give you specific examples. So if you actually kind of dig in to them, it's going to pop up and say, hey, here's what you're showing for. Here's where your dollars are being spent. Do you actually want to show for Beaver Dam or Grafton or West Allis? Do you actually service these areas? So it could be similar to what you guys are doing. And if not, you want to go ahead and add them as negatives because it's costing you dollars. So again, the software kind of tries to bubble up the biggest ones. It's not going to show you every single negative you should add, because that's a lot of work, and sometimes it can be a little bit monotonous and not be the best return on your time. But if they're on a weekly basis, all of a sudden there's a new competitor or there's something that popped up and you're wasting dollars on it, you want to be aware. But there's no software in the world that's going to know your business like you do. So it does kind of have you go in there and say, okay, I accept this or I reject it, because no, actually, I do actually service people in West Allis, even though I didn't call it out in my keyword. So you can accept or reject the optimization there. And then you can kind of pop over a couple more opportunities. So adding keywords. So the opposite of negatives is if you actually saw some searches in your queries, so what people are actually searching for, not the keyword, that are relevant to your business, you want to add those because, again, back to what we talked about at the beginning, the long tail terms will have a lower cost per click. You can have better messaging forms. So you want to be adding in new keywords every week, and there are new searches that come up every day. So again, kind of pop in there, see what's showing. If you did do, like if you were a roofer and you were doing financing, like maybe you'd want to add that as a keyword. So again, you want to go in there regularly and kind of look at these optimizations and just make sure you're kind of adding in the highest value things on a regular basis, not necessarily digging into every avenue within Google or Facebook, because it's easy to get lost. And then kind of one more example here, the alerts in Facebook. So similarly, it's going to talk about and look for opportunities with your ads, opportunities to try to grab more leads, and then, hey, you've done all these things, why don't you extend to remarketing? Or in this example, it's talking about lookalikes, which is a more advanced form of remarketing. So as your account becomes more sophisticated, the software kind of learns and again bubbles up opportunities, and maybe you said, hey, no, I'm not ready for this. I don't want to spend any more dollars on Facebook. You reject it, and you don't have to necessarily go in there and make that change, but it's going to continue to pop up these suggestions on a weekly basis. Last sort of call to action here. So we do have some free tools. We have the Google AdWords Grader, which I think is a great tool. It's a free tool. You can go in, super safe. We're a Google Premier partner. Your data is all safe and so forth. You can go in there, and basically what it'll do is analyze a lot of things we just went through and say, hey, here's opportunities for you. Here's your score relevant to your industry. Again, we've analyzed more data than anyone other than Google. And to my point earlier, about 50% of accounts haven't even been optimized in the last month. Most people aren't touching their account. 25% in the last 3 months. 1 in 4 accounts haven't even added a negative. And a lot of accounts, like I said, mentioned, have low quality scores, which can make you pay a premium in your cost per click. So this is the free tool. It's not part of the software. It's basically something that can go ahead and bubble those things up for you. The follow-up email that we'll have here, we'll send a link to this, but it's just WordStream. If you go to the website, you'll see it everywhere. The grader there, it's a good way to see how you stack up against the competition, to see where there's areas of opportunity for you. And then again, we have a software. You can try it for free on the website. Again, we'll include that here in the follow-up here, but if you wanted to go ahead and see some of those alerts for you that I just mentioned, specific to your account, you can pop on to WordStream, check out the trial, and you can run that for free and see if there are any opportunity for you. And that is mainly the main pieces there. I'm actually, like I said, so time for Q&A. If you have any questions, please put them in the box. I'm actually going to bring on, if you give me a second here, my colleague and friend, Kelly here. And so like I mentioned, Kelly has experience with both Mesa and WordStream. So we were talking, we thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of share his experience. And, we've talked through some things that we thought would be of value to you guys, some questions that you may have that we can follow up with here. And, if you have any other questions or for me or for Kelly, go ahead and pop it into the box there. But I'm going to bring on Kelly now and see if you can hear me, and we'll talk through some opportunities and some things that we thought were interesting to share.
Hey,
Hey there,
Tony.
Kelly.
Yep.
Hey, Kelly. So, Kelly, thanks for joining us. We talked through a lot there. We went through, Google Ads, Facebook. We talked through the software, and you've been through kind of all of this from scratch to now an optimized account that you're running yourself, but you have, still things you want to do. So just one question for you here, if you could share with the audience is, like I said, you mentioned you started your account from scratch. If you had to go back, what is the first thing you'd do if you're starting paid search again, knowing what you know today?
Well, probably the first thing I'd do would get started a little sooner doing it.
Okay.
But it can be a little daunting, especially, before we were just having, an outside service basically do all our Google ads, etc. So we had really no, certainly didn't feel like we had any control over it, and really didn't have the kind of control we'd wanted over it. So, getting started sooner would probably be the number one thing I'd do. Having a better understanding of keywords and how to properly use them would, I think is key.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people, I'm not sure for those folks that are on the line, but there are a lot of services there. We actually have an agency here as well, but there are a lot of agencies and folks that, they own the account, and that can be a challenge where you don't really have that transparency. So, if you don't own your account and you don't have that transparency, it's worth asking those questions or looking for yourself or taking things over, because to your point, if you don't necessarily know, where your dollars are going and so forth, you don't have that control. There's just no way to know the business as well as you do if you're working there. So, having that opportunity up front, and also making sure things are starting off, right on the right foot, right? Like you mentioned, having things, a good structure in the account, getting things off in the right way, because you might end up spending a whole bunch of dollars that you didn't necessarily want to up front, and kind of some expensive mistakes can add up quickly. So to that point, I guess, we talked about going through your accounts weekly. I know you're in and out of your account quite a bit. What is the one action that you'd recommend taking in your paid accounts weekly here?
Well, I think the 20-minute work week that you just click on in your software is extremely valuable, because it gets you focused on on stuff that should be brought to your attention, and you can kind of spend as little or as much time as you want with that, but at least it gives you a starting point. And I think that's, for me, that's pretty critical, just having something that gets me focused on what should be the most important stuff to deal with right now.
Right. Got it. And so, quality score is a big part of that here. I actually have a question. Somebody mentioned, what do you consider a good score? And so, Kelly, you could probably attest to this, but when you get things at the beginning, oftentimes Google basically will give you sort of the industry standard score, and that could be a 2, a 3, or 4. If you're below 3, your ad's barely going to show. You're going to see things oftentimes at 3 or 4 at the beginning until you optimize your account. You really want to get closer to that 7 range, so you're not paying that premium. 10s are obviously the ultimate goal. 10s are the best quality score, so you'll pay the lowest you possibly can. But 10s are trickier because you often get those more for like your own brand searches, and it's hard to get a perfect click-through rate and so forth. But I'd strive for 7s. You obviously just want to continue to make progress there. But if you have things in that 2, particularly the 2 range or below, you really need to make a change. You can often do that by kind of splitting out some ad groups. But if you're in that 3 or 4 range, you really want to focus on continuing to make new copy, splitting up your ad groups, and making those optimizations so that your click-through rates go up and your quality scores improve. Cool. Just last thoughts here from you, Kelly. I mean, what mistakes have you made in Google and Facebook that you learned from the most, and anything else that you'd want to share there?
probably I would say I feel like I was maybe overspending or not spending very wisely in the past, and that a lot of that had to do with just because of the service we were using was they were motivated by us just spending money and not necessarily whether that money was being spent wisely. And I think that's probably one of the biggest thing. Until I really started with you guys, I didn't have any understanding of negative keywords, and I think that's been important also.
So, yeah, I think the budget allocation is one of the biggest things I see in challenges. And like I said, sometimes it can be one keyword taking up all your dollars, or one campaign, or maybe sometimes people say, hey, I'm going to set up 50% of my dollars on Facebook and 50% on Google, and you really want to make sure you're constantly reevaluating and making sure you're reallocating those budget dollars to where you're getting the best return. So actually I have a question here, another one specifically about call tracking that I mentioned, and the question is, I was told that Google penalizes, let's see here, listings that do not have matching numbers. Does advertising different phone numbers not impact your listing? So what's interesting is you do want to have, like I said, the dynamic call tracking set. You shouldn't be penalized on that. And I can say that because Google actually has its own call tracking as well, and they want you to have the best experience for the user. Google has it. What's not great about Google is again, it's theirs. Sometimes those numbers can be reusable, or like they're not numbers that are great, aesthetically or localized and so forth. So, there is opportunity to even do Google's call tracking. I'd recommend having something, but you shouldn't be penalized if you're using something like Marchex or call tracking metrics, or businesses that specialize in that. We have one. We use Marchex. We kind of resell that, but you shouldn't see any penalization there. If you're doing something where you're kind of trying to call it out in the ad copy or something, it could be a little bit tricky. But you want to have those numbers. Google wants phone numbers. They're pushing more on calling these days as well for certain ad types and so forth. So you shouldn't see any penalization there. Let's see here. So I have one here. So I'd like to see ads in performing keywords of other members. I don't know, Kelly, if there's anything you can share, in terms of keywords that have performed well, or that you'd be willing to share there.
Sure.
Or just any best practices.
Sure. Well, I can kind of put something together, and probably it would be good to get some other members, involved with that too, to see, because that would be information that would be valuable to me too,
Sure. Yeah. So what I can do as a follow-up, I'll talk with the folks over at Mesa and see if they'd be willing to do any type of sharing, even if it's just something high level, or industry practices are, always good to share, especially if you're not even if you are competing. Like, I've talked to so many competitors over the years, and if you're not competing geos, there's nothing to worry about. But even if you are, it's one of those things, is sharing best practices and giving the best experience for your customers, like, at the end of the day, is going to help your business. I think I have one more question here. Once I learned to look closer at the page, you have clicks landing on. So it's just a comment, basically, in terms of where people are sending to the landing pages, and that is key. And that's also part of Google's quality score metric, is the landing page. So if you're sending all of your keywords to the home page, there is a chance that you're going to be penalized on quality score, right? Google likes relevancy. That's the whole point of quality score. So the more landing pages you can have, the better. I wouldn't go crazy, and just the return on your time. You don't need a landing page for every keyword or anything like that. But if you'd load different services or different geos, yeah, that can help. And having the keyword match your ad, match the copy on the page, Google can see that symmetry there, or that lineage, and will reward you for it. And taking Google's algorithms out of the equation here, that is just a better experience. Like I went, I searched, I found your ad, exactly what I was looking for, and I went right to your website and it's explaining exactly what I'm looking for. It builds trust. I'm more likely to give you a call or to come in or to make a purchase that way. So, having proper landing page set up is important. If you don't have the ability to edit your website, there are landing page solutions out there as well. That's another thing that we're starting to offer too. But again, agnostic of WordStream, if you went out there and you got a landing page solution, I'd recommend it. I think there's opportunity to do that and to build better pages specifically for paid search versus just kind of, so you oftentimes are doing more than one thing. You're managing a website, you're managing leads, trying to get jobs done, and depending on what your role is at the business, you don't necessarily have the time to do all those things. So if you can find a solution for it that's simple, I'd recommend it because, again, it'll pay dividends in your wallet and then also just with your users and booking jobs. So awesome. I don't think there are any more questions. Kelly, much appreciate your time. We'll circle back. I'll follow up with the folks over at Mesa and see if there's anything else we can do to add value. But thanks for everyone that joined here. Really appreciate it. We had good attendance. It sounds like everyone stood through all of it, so I appreciate it. Thanks to Kelly again for joining us, and we'll follow up and we'll focus on doing some more stuff with Mesa in the future. I think there's a good opportunity for everyone there. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll be in touch. Take care. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks.
Bye.